Hey, Roger Martin here from Billings, Montana. Good day. And what the media is reporting and what Trump is doing always seems to be at odds and different agendas and different actual situations. X22 reports really well on this.
To push a certain agenda using black sites within Iran, using the intelligence.
Now, we're talking about Kerry, and Kerry is treasonous as far as I'm concerned. I don't know why he's still doing what he's doing. I think they're trying to catch him at some of the crap that he's doing, and I think he'll face charges on it sometime. I'm hoping.
Organizations, and he is in constant contact with certain individuals in Iran. Now, what's very interesting about John Kerry's daughter, Vanessa, is married to an Iranian national and physician. His best man at the ceremony was the son of Mohammad Zarif, Iran's Minister of Foreign Affairs, the position comparable to U.S. Secretary of State. Zarif was also and Kerry's chief counterpart in the nuclear deal negotiations, and Kerry speaks to this individual quite often. And we need to understand is that Obama had a certain relationship with Qasem Soleimani. So we have these individuals that were working with certain individuals in Iran. And remember, each country has their own deep state operatives, just like here in the United States. Now, there was a time where Israel wanted to kill Qasem Soleimani, and Obama tipped off Iran to the strike, which allowed this individual to escape assassination. So, what we are seeing here.
That's treasonous too. And it's amazing how much crap these leaders have done against our enemies and against us, for our enemies and against us.
Is that the deep state players, they are working with certain individuals within different countries like North Korea and Iran. Now, the mainstream media, the deep state, the Dems, they're having a rough time with this one. They know that Qasem Soleimani is not a good guy. He has killed Americans. But the mainstream media, the deep state, they've used him to push certain agendas. And how do you balance this and explain this to America? They're having a very difficult time. And this is why the mainstream media is out there. And they're calling the protests in Iraq, Iraqi protest mourners are attacking the U.S. Embassy. They never mention that it's Iran. The other report, we pointed out all the different players and all the handlers that were on the ground. Some of them are now dead. They were calling the shots in Iraq. They were trying to push a certain event. And this was the beginning of an event that they were trying to push. Now, we see that Biden, Nancy Pelosi, the mainstream media, they're all out there and they're trying to figure out a way to get around this whole entire issue and not look like they're in support of this individual. Is it working? No. Biden came out and he took some shots at Trump. He said, "No American will mourn Qasem Soleimani's passing. He deserved to be brought to justice." So he's acknowledging that he's a bad person. Then he went on to say, President Trump just tossed a stick of dynamite into a tinderbox, and he owes the American people an explanation. He also said, "We could be on the brink of a major conflict across the Middle East. I hope the administration has thought through the second and third order consequences of the path they have chosen." And Warren followed a similar line. Soleimani was a murderer responsible for the death of thousands, including hundreds of Americans. But this reckless move escalates the situation with Iran and increases the likelihood of more deaths and new Middle East conflict. Our priority must be to avoid another costly war. Well, let's back up for a sec. Didn't they say this when Trump decided to remove the troops from Syria, didn't they say that Turkey was going to invade and take over and have a war with the Kurds? Did that all happen? No, it didn't. Actually, Syria and Russia, they're continually cleaning up the mess in Syria. We didn't have a new war. We didn't have a rebirth of the Islamic State. None of that happened. Remember, whenever these people talk, it is always the opposite. They're no longer in control, and they cannot make these things happen. Nancy Pelosi says, American leaders' highest priority is to protect American lives and interests, but we cannot put the lives of American service members, diplomats, and others further at risk by engaging in provocative and disproportionate actions. The Trump administration has conducted strikes in Iraq targeting high-level Iranian military officials and killing Iranian Quds Force commander Qasem Soleimani without an AUMF against Iran. Further, this action was taken without consultation of Congress. And we'll be talking about that in just a moment.
They don't need Congress's approval.
And we'll be talking about the AUMF also. But Mike decided to respond to Nancy Pelosi and said Qasem Soleimani's hands are drenched in American blood and in the blood of the Middle Easterners. The disproportionate response was what he got under previous administrations, a free pass to kill. What he got last night was justice. Now, Trump and the Patriots, they planned the attack and didn't notify Congress. There were no leaks, but I do believe the deep state was trying to warn Qasem Soleimani, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later. Now, a couple of questions.
Again, there were probably no leaks, but again, trying to warn him and protect him. Because they've got agendas and they use these people to the hilt. And they don't care what bloodshed they have on their hands. It's pretty sick.
Questions we need to answer. Why are the mainstream media, the deep state, so upset about what Trump did? What was their ultimate plan with Qasem Soleimani? 2, was Trump authorized to strike at a terrorist that just attacked a U.S. embassy? Well, let's take the second question first. Nancy Pelosi complained that Trump did not have the authority to take action. She is wrong. The AUMF was passed in 2002. The declaration allows the president to use the armed forces as necessary and appropriate to defend U.S. national security against the continuing threat posed by Iraq. What happened in Iraq? We had individuals that were attacking the U.S. embassy. It came from Iran, but they were in Iraq. That is a national security issue. Trump's action were not only appropriate and necessary, Trump's actions were also legal. Now, back in 2014, Barack Obama used the 2002 AUMF to attack terrorist groups inside of Iraq. Now, the way it worked back then was that anyone that was trying to remove the puppet regime that they put into place in all these countries, they called them terrorists. So Barack Obama used this to fight off the terrorists. Trump was using this to fight off the terrorists that were attacking the U.S. embassy. Now, Trump and the Patriots, they're using all the laws that the deep state put into place to have regime change, to keep regime change in place. He's using it against them to remove certain operatives. And what's
interesting to me is that this stuff has been set up to control regimes that they want in place. But now Trump is using it to keep players out of places we don't want them. Just the opposite is, as far as controlling regimes, we want to control the deep state and not have the deep state push different narratives. This is essential for world peace and for controlling the bloodshed that's going on and the wars that are going on.
Funny about this whole thing is that Democrats wanted to repeal the act in July of 2019, but never took action. They were too busy with impeachment to do anything else.
Wow, what it is.
Now, remember, Trump warned Iran, and I'm not saying it's the people of Iran, those deep state operatives in Iran, and he warned them Remember, because the deep state was in line with Iran, with this deal, with the pallets of cash. And he tweeted out the following: to Iranian President Rouhani, never ever threaten the United States again, or you will suffer consequences the likes of which few throughout history have ever suffered before. We are no longer a country that will stand for your demented words of violence and death. Be cautious. So the White House is reporting that General Soleimani was planning something against Americans. The White House tweeted out the following: General Soleimani was actively deploying plans to attack American diplomats and service members in Iraq and throughout the region. Trump tweeted out the following: General Qasem Soleimani has killed or badly wounded thousands of Americans over an extended period of time and was plotting to kill many more, but got caught. He was directly and indirectly responsible for the death of millions of people, including the recent large number of protesters killed in Iran itself. While Iran will never be able to properly admit it, Soleimani was both hated and feared within the country. They are not nearly as saddened as the leaders will let the outside world believe. He should have been taken out many years ago. And he continued.
Wow, that's a pretty important statement. Let's go back here. They are not nearly as saddened as leaders will let the outside world believe. So many rejoiced over his death, both in Iraq and in Iran, because they knew how ruthless he was. There were videos showing celebrations over his death, and the news media did not bring that out. Shame on them. Shame on them.
Will never be able to properly admit it, Soleimani was both hated and feared within the country. They are not nearly as saddened as the leaders will let the outside world believe. He should have been taken out many years ago. And he continued, Iran never won a war, but never lost a negotiation.
But never lost a negotiation. Iran never won a war, but never lost a negotiation. That's interesting. Why?
A negotiation with the United States, because the United States, at that time, with the deep state, gave them everything they wanted. Then Trump tweeted out the American flag and pinned it to the top of his Twitter page, showing that it's America first. Now, the Trump administration is now designated certain groups in Iran terrorist organizations. The U.S. Department says they will designate Asyab al-Haik, an Iraqi Shia group, as a foreign terrorist organization, saying it is a proxy of Iran. Now, before the strike, it seems that the deep state was trying to warn Soleimani. Now, I don't know if they heard chatter, but there were no leaks. Trump didn't let anyone else really know about it, especially Nancy Pelosi, Schumer, and the rest, because he knows that they would leak that right to the press, and then Soleimani would have been warned, and they didn't want that to happen. But the New York Times, they published an eerie opinion piece on Thursday that used a potential attack on an Iranian general, Qasem Soleimani. Now, it was a hypothetical scenario, and this was hours before the attack took place. The op-ed was called "Hypersonic Missiles Are a Game Changer." And in this part, it says, is there an individual in an unfriendly country who cannot be apprehended? What if the former commander of Iran's Revolutionary Guards, Qasem Soleimani, visits Baghdad for a meeting, and you know the address? The temptations to use hypersonic missiles will be many. And hours after this, what happened? Trump and the Patriots went in and they took him out. Now, Enoch tweeted out the following: did the New York Times know in advance an attempt to tip off Qasem Soleimani of the incoming missile strike? And I do believe they did try to do this. Obama did this many years before. So what was the deep state up to? Remember, the D class is coming. And the deep state main objective is to make sure that this never comes out. They tried everything. Russian collusion, obstruction, the impeachment. It is all not working. And they need to push Trump into something. And they were going to do.
The question is, who tipped off the New York newspaper, New York Times? Who tipped off the New York Times? They're still trying to clean out his cabinet and people around him. Someone tipped him off. Yeah. Could be in the military.
do this by using Qasem Soleimani. They were going to drag him into an event. But before this happened, what did Trump and the Patriots do? They countered it, just like they counter everything else. There were fears in the Iraqi government that Soleimani was going to lead a coup and overthrow the government, arrest the president, and take over the U.S. Embassy. Well, they started out with the protests. That was the beginning stages. And then we have Julian's Rum, who says 4 a.m. talking points went out. What would the U.S. do if Iran killed? And showed two tweets. And one was from Emma Vigeland and the other one Kate Brennan. And it said, imagine the Iranian government assassinating Mike Pompeo with a drone at the direction of the president and called it self-defense. That's exactly what the U.S. did by killing Soleimani, an act of war. The only difference is Iran's self-defense claims would be more legitimate. And the other tweet he linked to was, what would the U.S. do if Iran assassinated an American four-star general? Now remember, the deep state, they control Iran. They protect Iran. They help Iran out. They've been doing this for many years. The deep state needed to damage Trump any way possible.
Now, remember, biblically, Iran and Iraq are going to somehow unite, come down against Israel. I don't know when that's going to happen, but somehow, politically, those things are going to line up. And unfortunately, it's going to be very bad news for Israel and us.
And they were going to push a conflict in Iraq. The embassy attack was just the beginning. They wanted this to escalate. Remember, the deep state worked with Iran. They're in contact with Iran. John Kerry has been in contact many, many times with many deep state operatives within Iran. And they were supposed to escalate.
I still don't understand why he hasn't been released or someone else put in his place, because he's a traitor. Pure and simple.
This into something much, much bigger. Think about what the mainstream media and others are saying right now. This is going to lead to World War III. Iran is going to retaliate. It's going to be something that we've never seen before. They're going to hit Americans on all sides of the globe. And they're trying to say that war is coming. Who wants the war? The deep state. Is Trump looking for a war? No. Is this going to start a war? No. Actually, Trump countered their move where they were trying to start a war. He took out the head guy. What did this do? This shows Iran that the deep state is no longer in control of the situation. Iran cannot rely on the deep state protecting them any longer.
That's the key point. They've been protected all these years, and they've been used, and they love the money and the protection, but they are just as snaky as all get out.
The deep state plan will no longer work because they are not in control of the situation. The people of Iran do not want war. The Iraqi people don't want war. The American people don't want war. The deep state, they want a war.
Now, this is the most key statement made here. Americans don't want war. Iraqi citizens don't want war. Iranian citizens don't want war. But the deep state doesn't mind using these people to cause a war. Think about that. They are globalist, and they can care less about nations or people as long as they get their way and their agenda. Think about that, how treasonous that is, how despicable that is.
Trump sent a clear message that everything has changed. The Patriots are now in full control, and they're calling the shots. Remember, there was no warning to Qasem. There was no tip-off. There were no leaks to the mainstream media. Nobody knew that this was happening. It shows full control.
Now let me correct this guy. I don't think we're in full control. I think this is an illusion, and it's a dangerous one. Someone tipped off the New York Times. I repeat, someone in Trump's circle or close to them tipped off the New York Times. They're not in complete and full control. Don't ever believe they are. Deep state is not done for. It's not fully being controlled. If it was, Kerry and other individuals wouldn't be in doing what they're doing. So don't ever believe that the deep state is totally under control. This is a false narrative, and we need to be very careful and diligent to understand that this is an ongoing war that's never going to end. It's never going to end until Christ comes. Period.
And it shows that this individual and other individuals are no longer protected. Iran does not have the strength and would never attack the United States. This was a clear message to the deep state players there. The deep state no longer controls anything. We're controlling them. Now, very interestingly,
Again, I warn you, and I warn everybody listening to this. This is not an accurate statement, and we need to be careful on that mindset. The deep state will never totally be taken care of nor totally controlled. Never. There are too many powerful people in military, in government, in corporations that are involved in the deep state, and I don't think the deep state will ever totally be controlled. Period. Until Christ comes and these people are consumed. Be careful on this type of thinking.
when Trump put out the sanctions poster a year ago, where he says sanctions are coming to Iran, well, this is 1 year ago. It's a 1 year delta. Cowboy W2B tweeted out the following: heck of a coincidence that POTUS presented the sanctions poster exactly 1 year prior to taking out General Qasem Soleimani yesterday. And this was all planned from a very long time ago.
Now, that may be true. This may be true. But again, the leaks are still slowly coming out and coming out. They are, but not like they were under Obama. Definitely not like they were at the first of Trump's term. He had to clean his cabinet out. He had to clean his military out. He had to clean other individuals out. But this is still an ongoing process. Thank God for the high military intelligence. And the CIA has still not been cleaned out. I warn you that the deep state is still not totally cleaned out of their tentacles and their spies and the people that are leaking things out. It's still not there in the Congress or the Senate or in the Supreme Court or in the White House. I'm warning you, don't fully think this way.
They knew what the deep state was up to. They knew eventually what they were going to try to do was start a huge event. And Trump is not looking for regime change. He's not looking for a war. He sent a message to the other individuals in Iran: you need to understand who is in control. And we will defend and remove individuals if you do not work with us. Trump War Room tweeted out the following:
Now, that is true. That is true. But again, don't think the deep state is totally under control of the president, White House, military intelligence, or other White Hats. It's not. The battle continues, for sure.
we took action last night to stop a war. We did not take action to start a war, said President Trump after the strike that killed Iranian terrorist Soleimani. We do not seek regime change. However, the Iranian regime aggression must end, and it must end now. This is a message to those deep state players in Iran, letting them know, and the people of Iran saying, and those other leaders inside Iran, it is all ended now. And we're not looking to go in and change your leadership, to take over your country. What Trump wants right now is a platform to talk to Iran. This was not meant to start a war. They're not going to start a war. Yes, the deep state will try other things, but his entire purpose was to bring these individuals and to show them who is now in control, that your protection that you used to have is gone. And now you have to deal with the people that are in control. You know that Iranian deal that they were trying to tell you to keep? There's no reason to keep it anymore because they're no longer in control. Now, of course, Iran and those deep state players, they might try to hold out until after the elections. Or they might look at this and say, okay, we might not have an alternative here. We might have to go along and start to speak to Trump. Now, is Trump going to get that phone call? Maybe. It might be before the elections or it might be right after the elections. Remember, Trump will make it perfectly clear that if they don't deal now and they wait, it's going to be that much harder. The same thing with China. And I think China is starting to come to their senses. And I do believe that Iran is going to start to come to their senses. Now remember, the mainstream media, the deep state, this entire operation that they were pushing in Iraq, they were all on board with this. They are now shocked. They can't believe that Trump just went ahead and countered everything that they were trying to do. And that's why they've been pushing the idea that war is coming. War is not coming. This is why I do believe Trump decided to put out this message. Still, no regime change, no war. We are not like the old administration. The deep state does not call the shots anymore. And America does not push regime change. And Trump, he is now positioning the United States to show the world that the patriots are in control. Just like in Syria. Remember when he fired those missiles and everyone thought we were going to war? Troops were going to be headed towards Syria? None of that happened. Remember in North Korea? Everyone thought we were going to war. The mainstream media was building it up. War is coming. What happened? No war. Now they're building it up here with Iran because this is what they want. Remember, whenever you hear they want war or this guy was a good guy, he wasn't a terrorist, he was a revered leader, and this is them covering for these individuals. It's always the opposite. When they want war, peace is coming. They're projecting what they want, but Trump, the patriots, are not giving it to them. And it looks like the entire mission of the deep state was countered. Doesn't mean they're going to stop. They might move to North Korea next because they know what's coming. They know the D-class is headed their way. They know they need to stop this any way they possibly can because if they don't have an event and it's left wide open, what happens? They're doomed, and they know it. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.
I got to warn you again and end with this. The deep state is alive and well and very active, and currently the war against the deep state has escalated to a point where it never has. And Trump and the Patriots are doing more controlling and offensive as well as defensive attacks on the deep state. The deep state is very alive and well, and they're not going to stop. And they're not fully uh, out of the picture. And this should be a warning to anybody that thinks they are diminished in their power or their tentacles or their influence. They're not. There are too many people that can be bought off politically and financially. It still is a very, very big problem. The deep state and its abuses, both moral-wise, politically-wise, money-wise, and connection-wise. Period. We're going to end it for now, but there's so much more going on than we can see through these limited videos.